Titanic. The sinking of the Titanic in April 1912 remains one of the most infamous maritime disasters in history. The RMS Titanic, touted as unsinkable, was the largest and most luxurious ship of its time, stretching 882 feet in length and weighing over 46,000 tons. Designed as a marvel of engineering and opulence, it boasted grand dining halls, a heated swimming pool, and lavish suites catering to the wealthiest passengers. Its maiden voyage from Southampton to New York was seen as a milestone in maritime history, with widespread media coverage heightening its mystique. On the night of April 14, 1912, despite warnings of icebergs from nearby ships, the Titanic was traveling at near full speed. The lack of immediate concern was partly due to the ship's reputation for safety, reinforced by its watertight compartments and advanced design. At approximately 11:40 p.m., a lookout in the crow's nest spotted an iceberg directly in the ship's path. However, the ship's design made sharp turns difficult, and the collision was inevitable. The iceberg struck the starboard side, causing a series of gashes below the waterline and flooding 5 compartments, surpassing the Titanic's ability to stay afloat. Within 2 hours and 40 minutes, the ship broke apart and sank, taking over 1,500 lives with it. The story of the Titanic gained renewed fame through James Cameron's 1997 film, Titanic, which dramatized the events of the disaster. While the romance of Jack and Rose might not have been real, the chaos and inequalities portrayed on screen reflected the harsh realities many passengers faced, just without the luxury of floating doors. The wreck's discovery in 1985 further solidified the Titanic's place in history, sparking global interest in its legacy. Following the disaster, international attention turned to improving maritime safety. This led to the adoption of agreements such as the SOLAS, Safety of Life at Sea Convention, which established stricter safety protocols for passenger vessels, ensuring better lifeboat capacity, emergency training, and iceberg monitoring systems. Lusitania. The sinking of the RMS Lusitania on May 7, 1915, stands as one of the most shocking maritime disasters of the 20th century. This British ocean liner, renowned for its speed and luxury, was a symbol of transatlantic travel, bridging the gap between Europe and America. At 787 feet long, the Lusitania was celebrated for its elegance, boasting grand dining saloons and first-class accommodations that rivaled even the Titanic. However, its role in history would be defined not by opulence but by tragedy, as it became a pivotal moment in the lead-up to the United States' entry into World War I. On its ill-fated voyage from New York to Liverpool, the Lusitania entered waters declared a war zone by Germany. Despite warnings, the ship sailed without sufficient naval escort, relying on its speed to evade danger. At approximately 2:10 p.m., a German U-boat torpedoed the Lusitania off the southern coast of Ireland. Within just 18 minutes, the ship sank, taking nearly 1,200 lives, including 128 Americans. The rapid sinking was exacerbated by a mysterious secondary explosion, which some speculate was caused by hidden munitions on board, a claim that remains debated to this day. The disaster shocked the world, fueling anti-German sentiment, particularly in the United States. The sinking was portrayed in Allied propaganda as a barbaric attack on civilians, with images of lifeboats overturned and passengers struggling in the icy waters haunting public consciousness. Decades later, the Lusitania's legacy continues to stir controversy and intrigue, inspiring investigations, documentaries, and even fictional adaptations. While the world remembers it as a catalyst for America's eventual entry into the war, the Lusitania's story is also a testament to the human cost of wartime aggression. MV Wilhelm Gustloff. The sinking of the MV Wilhelm Gustloff on January 30, 1945 is the deadliest maritime disaster in recorded history, yet it remains relatively unknown compared to tragedies like the Titanic or Lusitania. This German ship, originally built as a luxury cruise liner for the Nazi craft Der Freud, Strength Through Joy on program, was later repurposed as a hospital and troop transport during World War II. By the time of its final voyage, it was overcrowded with over 10,000 passengers, including wounded soldiers, Nazi officials, and civilians fleeing the advancing Soviet army. As the Wilhelm Gustloff navigated the icy waters of the Baltic Sea, it became a prime target for Soviet submarines. Shortly after 9 p.m., it was struck by 3 torpedoes fired from the Soviet submarine S-13, commanded by Alexander Marinesko. Within an hour, the ship sank beneath the freezing waters, claiming the lives of an estimated 9,000 people, over half of them women and children. The overcrowding, coupled with the harsh winter conditions, made rescue efforts nearly impossible, and the chaos on board led to heartbreaking scenes of families being separated and lifeboats capsizing. Unlike the Titanic or Lusitania, the Wilhelm Gustloff story is less discussed, perhaps due to the complexities of its wartime context. However, its staggering death toll and the tragic circumstances of its passengers highlight the devastating human cost of war. In recent years, the disaster has gained more attention through books, documentaries, and memorial efforts, cementing its place as one of history's most haunting maritime tragedies. The Empress of Ireland. The sinking of the RMS Empress of Ireland on May 29, 1914 is one of Canada's deadliest maritime disasters. This elegant ocean liner, part of the Canadian Pacific Railway's fleet, was a vital link between Canada and Europe, transporting immigrants, mail, and cargo across the Atlantic. At 570 feet long, the Empress was celebrated for its speed and reliability, having completed over 190 voyages since its launch in 1906. On its final journey, the Empress of Ireland departed Quebec City bound for Liverpool with 1,477 passengers and crew on board. In the early hours of May 29th, while navigating the foggy waters of the St. Lawrence River, the Empress collided with the Norwegian collier SS Storstad. The impact tore a massive hole in the ship's side, and within just 14 minutes, the Empress sank beneath the river's surface. Over 1,000 people lost their lives, many trapped in their cabins or unable to escape the icy waters in time. Unlike the Titanic, the disaster unfolded so quickly that distress signals and lifeboat deployments were minimal. Despite its scale, the Empress of Ireland's tragedy received limited international attention, as it occurred shortly before the outbreak of World War I. However, in Canada, it remains a poignant reminder of the country's maritime history. Artifacts recovered from the wreck, which lies preserved in the cold waters of the St. Lawrence, are now displayed in museums, keeping the memory of the Empress and its passengers alive for future generations. SS Andrea Doria. This Italian luxury liner, named after a 16th century naval hero, was celebrated for its elegance and cutting-edge design. With art-filled lounges, grand dining halls, and air-conditioned cabins, the Andrea Doria was a floating symbol of post-war Italian pride. Tragically, its final voyage from Genoa to New York ended in disaster when it collided with the Swedish-American liner MS Stockholm off the coast of Nantucket. The collision occurred in heavy fog at approximately 11:10 p.m., when the two ships failed to adjust their courses in time. The Stockholm's reinforced bow tore into the Andrea Doria's starboard side, puncturing its hull and causing severe flooding. While the Stockholm sustained damage, it remained afloat, but the Andrea Doria began listing dangerously to one side. The list rendered half of its lifeboats unusable, complicating evacuation efforts. Despite the chaos, heroic rescue operations by nearby ships, including the SS Ile-de-France, saved over 1,600 passengers and crew. However, 46 lives were lost in the collision. The Andrea Doria sank the following morning, leaving behind questions about navigational errors and radar misinterpretations. The disaster sparked debates about safety protocols and became a turning point for maritime regulation, particularly in dense shipping lanes. Today, the wreck of the Andrea Doria rests at the bottom of the Atlantic, attracting divers and preserving its legacy as both a tragic accident and a testament to the bravery of those who carried out the rescue efforts. The MV Dona Paz. The MV Dona Paz disaster, often referred to as the Titanic of Asia. On December 20, 1987, this Philippine passenger ferry was en route from Tacloban to Manila when it collided with the oil tanker MT Vector in the Tablas Strait. The Dona Paz was designed to carry around 1,500 passengers, but it was vastly overloaded, with estimates suggesting over 4,000 people were on board, many without proper documentation. At approximately 10:30 p.m., the Dona Paz collided with the Vector, which was transporting 8,800 barrels of petroleum products. The impact caused the Vector's cargo to ignite, triggering a massive explosion that engulfed both vessels in flames. The Dona Paz, constructed mostly of wood, burned rapidly, leaving passengers with little chance of survival. Those who managed to jump into the water were faced with oil-slicked seas that were ablaze. Rescue efforts were delayed, and only 24 survivors were found clinging to debris. Official reports estimate the death toll at over 4,300, though the exact number remains uncertain. The disaster exposed widespread negligence, including the Dona Paz's lack of a functioning radio and an undertrained crew, as well as the Vector's questionable seaworthiness. Investigations revealed that the Vector's crew lacked proper licenses, and the vessel itself had no updated safety certifications. The tragedy led to a public outcry in the Philippines, highlighting the need for stricter maritime safety regulations. Kursk Submarine. The Russian nuclear submarine K-141 Kursk was considered a pinnacle of Soviet engineering, capable of carrying advanced weaponry and operating undetected in Arctic waters. During a naval exercise in the Barents Sea, the Kursk was scheduled to demonstrate its firepower, but the operation ended in disaster when a catastrophic explosion rocked the vessel, killing most of its crew instantly. The explosion was caused by the failure of a torpedo, which detonated in the forward compartment and triggered a second, larger blast. The submarine sank to the seafloor, trapping 118 crew members inside. Initial investigations revealed that at least 23 sailors survived the initial explosions, retreating to a rear compartment where they awaited rescue. Tragically, despite their efforts to signal for help, the Russian Navy delayed rescue operations, citing secrecy and logistical challenges. By the time divers reached the submarine a week later, all the crew members had perished, likely due to asphyxiation or hypothermia. The disaster provoked widespread criticism of the Russian government and military for their slow and inadequate response. International offers of assistance were initially rejected, further fueling public outrage. The Kursk became a symbol of systemic failures in post-Soviet Russia's naval infrastructure and governance. The Costa Concordia, the Italian cruise ship measuring over 950 feet in length and carrying more than 4,200 passengers and crew, was a floating resort equipped with luxury amenities, theaters, and fine dining. Its voyage along the Mediterranean coastline was meant to be a dream vacation, but it ended in chaos and disaster. At approximately 9:45 p.m., while sailing near the island of Giglio, the Costa Concordia struck submerged rocks, tearing a 160-foot gash in its hull. The impact caused severe flooding, and within minutes, the ship began to list dangerously. Poor communication and delayed evacuation orders led to panic among passengers, many of whom struggled to reach lifeboats as the ship tilted further. Despite the proximity to shore, 32 lives were lost, and over 100 others were injured in the chaotic evacuation. The scandal deepened when it was revealed that Captain Francesco Schettino had deviated from the planned route, allegedly to perform a salute to the island. Schettino abandoned the ship early in the evacuation, earning him the nickname Captain Coward in the media. His actions, or lack thereof, became the subject of a highly publicized trial, resulting in his conviction for manslaughter and abandonment of ship. MS Estonia. The sinking of the MS Estonia on September 28, 1994, is one of the deadliest peacetime maritime disasters, claiming 852 lives in the frigid waters of the Baltic Sea. The ferry, carrying 989 passengers and crew, was en route from Tallinn, Estonia, to Stockholm, Sweden. Known for its reliability, the Estonia was a common mode of transportation across the region. However, this routine voyage turned catastrophic in the early hours of the morning when mechanical failure and severe weather combined to create a nightmare scenario. At approximately 1 a.m., the ferry encountered heavy seas with waves reaching up to 15 feet. Under these conditions, the ship's bow visor, a critical component protecting the car deck, failed catastrophically. The visor broke off, allowing water to flood the car deck, which destabilized the vessel. Within minutes, the ferry began listing heavily to starboard, making it nearly impossible for passengers to escape. By 1:30 a.m., the Estonia capsized and sank, leaving survivors clinging to life rafts in the icy water. The tragedy prompted an international investigation that concluded the bow visor's design flaws and poor maintenance were primary contributors to the disaster. However, controversies and conspiracy theories persist, with some questioning the official findings and suggesting that military cargo or other hidden factors played a role. The Estonia disaster led to sweeping changes in ferry design and safety protocols, including stricter standards for bow visor strength and emergency evacuation procedures. Titan Submersible. The Titan Submersible disaster in June 2023 captivated great global attention. The privately operated submersible, designed for deep-sea exploration, was on a mission to view the wreck of the Titanic, resting 12,500 feet below the surface of the North Atlantic. Operated by OceanGate Expeditions, the Titan carried 5 passengers, including the company's CEO and prominent adventurers, each paying up to $250,000 for the journey. What was meant to be a unique exploration of history ended in catastrophic failure. Shortly after its descent, the Titan lost communication with its surface vessel, sparking a frantic international search and rescue operation. Days later, debris from the submersible was discovered, confirming its implosion due to immense pressure at such depth. Experts cited possible flaws in the Titan's construction, including its unconventional use of composite materials and a lack of rigorous safety certifications. The implosion, likely instantaneous, left no survivors. The disaster highlighted the extreme risks of deep-sea exploration, where technical failures can have devastating consequences. The tragedy reignited debates about the ethics of commercializing such dangerous expeditions and the responsibilities of operators in ensuring safety. It also drew comparisons to the Titanic itself, underscoring humanity's ongoing fascination with exploring the ocean's most unreachable places. Sultana Steamboat. The explosion of the SS Sultana on April 27, 1865, is one of the deadliest maritime disasters in American history, yet it remains overshadowed by the end of the Civil War, which occurred just weeks earlier. The Sultana, a sidewheel steamboat, was designed to carry around 376 passengers, but was grossly overloaded with over 2,100 people, most of them Union soldiers recently released from Confederate prison camps. Many of these men were weak and malnourished, eagerly heading home after enduring the horrors of war. At around 2 a.m., while sailing on the Mississippi River near Memphis, Tennessee, the Sultana's boilers exploded catastrophically. The blast tore through the upper decks, engulfing the wooden ship in flames and hurling passengers into the cold, swift river. Poor maintenance and makeshift repairs to the boilers, coupled with the excessive weight on board, were later identified as the causes of the explosion. Tragically, more than 1,800 people lost their lives, making it the deadliest maritime disaster in U.S. history. Despite its devastating scale, the Sultana disaster received little attention at the time, as national headlines were dominated by President Lincoln's assassination and the war's conclusion. Today, efforts by historians and descendants of survivors aim to preserve the memory of the Sultana and honor the lives lost. Whaleship Essex. The Whaleship Essex tragedy, which occurred in 1820, was the main disaster that inspired Herman Melville's classic novel Moby Dick. The Essex, a Nantucket-based whaling ship, embarked on a routine voyage to hunt sperm whales in the Pacific Ocean. However, this ordinary mission turned into an extraordinary tale of survival when the ship was struck and sunk by an enraged sperm whale, leaving the crew stranded thousands of miles from land. On November 20, 1820, the Essex encountered a massive sperm whale off the coast of South America. The whale, estimated to be 85 feet long, rammed the ship twice with tremendous force, splintering its hull. The crew, 20 men in total, scrambled to their smaller whaleboats, salvaging what supplies they could. With limited food and water, the men faced an agonizing journey across the open ocean, battling starvation, dehydration, and exposure. Over the next 3 months, their dire circumstances led to unthinkable acts of survival, including cannibalism. Of the 20 crew members, only 8 survived to tell the tale. Their harrowing experiences captivated the public and cemented the Essex's place in maritime history. The tragedy underscored the dangers of whaling in the 19th century and the unpredictability of the ocean.